What's up, guys? Brian from the Boopinion here, and today we're going to be talking about some games that got a lot of criticism at the time that they were launched, and in the early days of people playing them, it wasn't really what the particular fans of the game series they were part of wanted. But I think if you revisit these games and you were to play them now, you might enjoy them more than what you remember at the time you were playing it early on, and what people said about them at the time. So kind of just jumping right in, we're going to be talking about Starfox Adventures, which is definitely might be the most controversial game on this video today, perhaps, or it could be a game that you really enjoyed depending on how you just felt about the game at the time versus what it was supposed to be and what fans expected it to be. So the reason why this game got a lot of hate and criticism is that it was originally supposed to be a different game, as I almost mentioned at the beginning, Dinosaur Planet, which was going to be a new game series for Nintendo. And then at the last second they were like, nah, we're going to have Starfox in this game because we want Starfox in the early days of the GameCube. So they kind of just copied and pasted him in, which pissed off the developers of Rare, and this was kind of like the last game they did on a big Nintendo console, aside from some games for the 3DS. And so it pissed off the developers at Rare, and it also really made people mad. They were fans of the Star Fox series because they really wanted a true sequel to Star Fox 64, which we obviously didn't get because this was basically like Zelda, Dinosaur Planet, Star Fox all combined into this weird game that really borrowed from the Ocarina of Time mechanics, and that it literally used like some of the same animations and had temples and shit like that. And yeah, it was just a lot of platforming and moving around on the ground. It didn't really... I think the only time that you were actually in like a Star Fox ship is when you were traveling between different planets, and basically the last part of the game they're like, hey, this is what we could actually do if there was a sequel to Star Fox 64. So for those reasons it really rubbed people the wrong way, but I personally really enjoyed it because I found the puzzles to be fun to figure out, and I liked the combat system a lot, even though it was pretty wonky. So I would really recommend you guys just to check it out. I'm sure you could find it pretty cheap nowadays, and you might enjoy it because it does, like I said before, it is kind of like the lost cousin of Ocarina of Time and the mechanics. It's got some good music. The composer of the music was David Wise, who I'm sure you might be familiar with, as he was involved with the Donkey Kong Country soundtracks, such as Bramble Blast. And so I've often even used the the tracks for studying or just working on a project or something. Next game we're going to talk about is Super Paper Mario, which if you played the game, I would definitely recommend checking out my friend Kirk's channel, where he kind of broke down the rankings of the chapters, and I would just check it out just to get a feel for the game again if you haven't played it for a while. This game was definitely a sharp deviation from what Nintendo was doing before with the Paper Mario series, with Paper Mario 64 and the Thousand Year Door, but I still enjoyed it, even though it didn't have the true RPG turnstile format, because it probably had the best story in the Paper Mario series. I enjoyed just the change of the format with just moving around in a 3D style and just kind of jumping right in. It was kind of like a 2D Mario, basically like Super Mario Bros. Mixed in with a great story, and still had some of the Paper Mario elements such as the humor, and it kind of still had the partner aspect with the pixels, but obviously not as lovable as the characters in Thousand Year Door and 64. I would say that I don't think we would get to kind of the return to the Thousand Year War and something more with the Origami King if Nintendo had never taken a chance with Super Paper Mario. And it's a good thing that Nintendo takes chances sometimes instead of just doing the same old format over and over again, because eventually that's going to get boring and tiring. As I'm sure some of you have said the same thing about New Super Mario Bros. U with that series on Nintendo, where it's literally just the same game over and over again with better graphics. Eventually you're going to want a different game like Super Mario Bros. 3D World, where they take a chance and mix things up. It's a new experience, which is what Super Paper Mario was. And it leads to better games in the future, kind of mixing the old and the new, which is what they did with Luigi's Mansion 3. Now, the game we're going to talk about this time is pretty hard for me to defend, honestly, but I'm still going to include it on here because it still had some good aspects to it, and maybe some of the good from it will be introduced in Metroid Prime 4, and the bad will definitely be taken out, such as Samus's very flawed personality in this game. And what I'm talking about, of course, is Metroid Other M. This game I remember getting actually the day it came out, and I was one of the people who was like, wait, what? Why is Samus like the opposite of what she's been for every other game before this game? And that was the biggest reason why this game just got the criticism that it definitely deserved, but there were some good aspects to it, such as, again, basically the crux of this video and what this game still had going for it was the gameplay, which was still pretty fun. Ultimately, though, Metroid Other M just couldn't compete with the Prime series, as the story was so much more lackluster, and the character flaws of Samus compared to how she is in previous games is what really brings this game down. However, I still think it's a fun game to play, and one you might want to check out if you don't care that much about how it holds up to the Prime series. Lastly, we're going to be talking about a game that was very mixed in the community in which it's a part of, which is Breath of the Wild. Now, Breath of the Wild obviously did very well for Nintendo, and a lot of people that have never really played the Zelda games and gave it a shot really loved it. However, this game is also kind of controversial because while it did very well and a lot of people enjoyed just the game itself, it kind of just did a more watered down version of previous games, and that you just go off fighting enemies and then you fight Ganondorf in the end. And it didn't really have the more character-centric towns. It didn't have the temples, obviously, like the water temple, which a lot of people hate, obviously, but it's just kind of part of the Zelda experience. There's some temples that you really look forward to, and you obviously get through the ones you don't enjoy, like the water temple, but you can't enjoy the other temples if you don't experience something like the water temple. And this game, although great, had so much exploration, it was really missing more of the story that the other games had. This has definitely been my most opinionated video so far. I'm not sure a lot of people share my feelings on Starfox Adventures. But again, if you've never played it before, check it out. Let me guys know if there's other games you thought kind of unfairly got criticism, or if you thought I was too lenient on some games, or not hard enough on others. So that being said, this has been Brian from the Boopinion, and I'll see you guys next week. Thanks.